welcome back to another episode of Extra Literary Affairs. Today, Joey and I are going to review the stories that we read and discussed in May. And Joey, I am so excited because we read such great content in May. I know we say that every month, but I really feel it was very appropriate for us in May. And I would love to just quickly review the stories, the names and the titles, the authors of the stories that we read in May, just to ground us all in the same conversation. So we started out the month with The Paper Menagerie by Ken Liu. We then went to Tove Ditlevson's story, The Umbrella. Then we read Two Sisters by Ludmila Petrushevskaya. And we rounded out the month by reading a novel, which we both really loved, by Virginia Woolf called The Waves. So, Joey, before I go any further, I would love to know what was your favorite short story that we read in May, and why did that in particular stand out to you?
My favorite one was definitely The Paper Menagerie by Ken Liu, because it's so well written, it's so emotional, it really tugs on your heartstrings, and I think it really shows his prowess as an author, because it's such a short story that how do you make that much of an emotional impact in such a short amount of time when you don't have 600 pages to establish a connection between the reader and the character? And both of us cried, and other people have cried. You have gotten that message from people. So I highly recommend it to everyone. It's not just that it's sad and that's why you should read it, but because it's just a great story overall. How about you, Jennifer?
Well, Joey, not surprising to anyone who has spent any time with us together, of course I loved Ken Liu's Paper Menagerie, and my notes to myself was like, so emotional. And as you had mentioned, I had sent this story to a friend, and I received back a text message with the photograph of him sobbing in a Starbucks. So it's a universal crybaby story in the best possible way. And I do concur that he's so much into that short story that it's still resonating throughout my life, my conversations that I'm having with people. It just really made a deep impact. And I'm always impressed when a writer can have such an effective control of their language and their storytelling that we linger with that story long after the story is over. And Joey, as you know, I often have a very short attention span. I read a story, I love it, I'm in it, and then we have moved on to the next thing. But this one just echoes back through my thoughts of May and all of the themes around that.
Yeah, well, we do read a lot of short stories. We read one a week. So you don't have a lot of time to kind of sit and contemplate. I mean, we contemplate them, obviously, because we analyze them and discuss them. But yeah, we kind of have to quickly move on just based on our schedule.
Yeah, Joey. So I love that we both loved this together in equal intensity. That always makes me excited. I do like it when we have a little bit of disagreement. So here is the question for you. Do you have any unexpected disappointments or surprises in the stories that we read this month?
I wouldn't say I was disappointed. I don't think I've ever said, "Oh, I was disappointed in this story." I will say that if I had to pick something, and I do because I always say we have to pick something, is that I would say the Two Sisters by Ludmila Petrushevskaya. I was only disappointed in the translation, and again, this is not a dig at. I can't remember the translator's name. I'm not saying that they're a bad translator. I just feel like and we both said this in the episode as well. Is like, it's probably an accurate translation, but is this the best way to translate this story? I don't know. Neither of us speak Russian, which is what that story was originally written in. So I'd be curious to hear from Russian speakers who are literate as well, obviously, to see like what, if they were to read that English translation and the Russian original text, what comes across differently, and is this correct? Is this the correct prose? And if that's it, then maybe I just don't like Ludmila Petrushevskaya's writing style, but I do like the story and I like the themes that were in it. How about you? Do you have any disappointments or surprises?
Well, I'm going to go with surprises because surprise, surprise, that was my same feedback, that I wasn't sure that the translation, and We did not coordinate this at all. So I love that this is raw reaction. Like, I don't know what Joey's going to say. Sometimes it matches, sometimes it doesn't. I put the Two Sisters story as one of my surprise favorites. So although we didn't really love the translation, I love the ideas that were being expressed in there. And as time has moved on since we've read that story, I've been doing much more reflection back on like what was the author trying to express to us, and what do I feel about my own options if I could use the magic pill and go back in time and relive my life from the age of 12, would I do that? Or would I be wise enough to say, one time around the merry-go-round is plenty, let's not re-engage with all of that life experience? So I just really have been contemplating that on a real personal level lately.
Yeah, I don't want to go back to be 12. That does not sound appealing to me.
And for that, we're all very grateful, right? Because Joey, I can't imagine, like, honestly, we're going to get in the time machine. So I'm going to pretend we're of equal ages, which we are truly not. But if you were 12 and I was 12 at the same time, because this is our magical realism confabulation that we're writing this story, I am really curious of what type of conversations you and I would be having and what types of books we would actually be reading. So that to me is also just a fascinating sideline, never to be explored, but that is what came up for me.
It's literally impossible
It
to
is
find out.
literally impossible, but it's also an interesting thought exercise, as we often have in the stories that we have been reading. And so, Joey, of course, I have to ask, and I have an inkling on this, but I hope that there's a curveball coming. What character or scene stuck with you the most, and why was that?
No, it's gonna be what yours to me because it's of course the letter at the end of the Paper Menagerie that the mother writes to her son, and we find out all of her past. That's the part that punches you right in the stomach at the end. Ken Liu really drives it home and really ends the story on a very powerful note, literally a note, that's revealed in one of the origami animals that she made for her son when he was younger. And it's such a beautiful moment, and it's so sad. It's a very satisfying ending. I mean, that's not the exact ending. Obviously, we both know it goes on a little bit after that. To get that perspective from the mother was such a satisfying part of the story for me, because we had not really heard her throughout the story. She is stifled, she is silenced, so she doesn't have the ability or the autonomy to really use her voice and express her emotions, or even speak in her native language that she's more comfortable articulating herself in. And so it's just this beautiful moment that gets me every time. Even when you were did you read it in the episode and we're both like, oh my God.
I did. We're like, I need a moment
I
to
can't
collect
do this.
myself. We just needed a moment.
It's messed up. What about you?
So my favorite character came from the Paper Menagerie, which was the paper tiger. Like, I was very curious about how that was integrated. And again, we kind of talk about this speculative fiction, this magical realism. Like, it was, of course, this origami tiger who he loved as a child and had these adventures with. Of course, it came back after his mother's death and taught him, like, maybe one of the most fundamental life lessons he will ever have a chance to learn. So I was like, oh yeah, way to go, tiger. And I was very happy to be in that playful, imaginative space of, what if the paper could talk? And just as I said that, Joey, I was like, guess what? Papers talk to us all the time. They're called books, right? Books, letters, they're paper tigers are talking to us all the time. And one character that I am still really, really pondering was from The Umbrella. And it was the main character, the woman. I do not recall her name, but her life circumstance was she kind of had okay, let's be frank. She kind of had a dud of a husband, and he destroyed the one and only thing that she cared about at all was this umbrella. And she seemed so resigned. She's like, oh, this is life. I'll just move on. This is what you get for trying to be happy. And that's where I left the story, and it's like, no, I don't want that ending. I would like you to have an adventure. So as we often do, the question is, what happened after the story? So she's just been floating around in my consciousness. And Joey, there was a moment that I thought was really funny from that episode between you and I'm not sure if it made it through the edits. It's that I thought the umbrella had some sort of feminine unfolding of sexuality, and I was totally trucking down that path, and I'm like, yeah, totally wrong. Okay, just throw that to the wind. And an umbrella sometimes is just an umbrella.
I know. I think I don't. You know what? It's been a minute. I can't remember what was said in that episode. But I think that could be it. That it could have been a metaphor for like a sexual, maybe not a sex organ, but like a sexual awakening or an awakening of some kind. Even though she's pretty much destroyed at the end of that story, she kind of just resigns herself to I had happiness, it was fleeting, and now just I have to accept that it's gone, and she just kind of accepts the impermanence of that umbrella. Sad story. We read
have a lot of really uplifting stories in May, but I did appreciate that what happened in that story also, Joey, as you said, she's just kind of ticked the box. She's like, happiness, check. The rest of my life, not having happiness, check. Really? You couldn't find it? But there was some hope, because I don't know if you remember this. I don't know if you remember this particular scene, but for me, it was very funny because before we knew she was going to get the umbrella and that was her secret dream, she's like, I had money that I squirreled away and I saved it and my husband doesn't know about it. So I'm going to take the money. I'm like, please tell me you're taking the money to run away from him. Buy a train ticket. He's not right for you. And no, she did not. She buys the umbrella, and then the author gets to show us that unfolding of the story, and it's like, oh, right, your jealous, insecure, yucky husband broke the one thing that you actually cared about. So yeah, not really very uplifting. And her mother wasn't any better. Like, it was very funny. Like, May, the month of May is Mother's Day. So we had the Ken Liu story that was all about mother love and sacrifice. And then we had the umbrella mom, who was more like, you need to be practical. You should just be happy he doesn't beat you. Or if he beats you, he doesn't beat you a lot. This is your lot in life. Yeah, it's like, you're still here, aren't you? Like, how bad could your life be? And I was like, are you kidding me? And then the two sisters, they did not have a mom because their parents passed away because they were in their 80s, right? These girls, like, they could not reasonably expect to have parents. But it was also that lack of mothering. So they went and found a grandmother to help them out, who actually in real life, before they took the potion to go back to their childhood, was one of their contemporaries. So I just thought also, it's like there's a lot of mother energy floating around for us in the month of May.
Yeah, I guess the waves is the only thing that didn't really have that through line there, is with motherhood. I don't know, maybe it's in there if we reread it. I read it 3 times that to prepare, but I don't remember anything about that. But yeah, sometimes it just aligns.
Sometimes it just aligns. And so, Joey, we are heading into June. It's a very busy month for us for the readings that are coming up. What's one of the stories you're most excited about to explore in June?
I would say that the story I'm most excited for is all of them, but I will pick only one, and I will force myself to pick The Switchman by Juan Jose Arreola, because I think it's very unique, and I always really enjoy when we sort of expand our horizons and find important literary figures from different parts of the world. And from Juan Jose Arreola is from Mexico, or was from Mexico because he's no longer alive, but he was an important literary figure, and they still study his work in Mexico. So says the internet. If you're from Mexico, feel free to correct me on that. And I would love to know if people are still reading him. Actually, my sister and my brother-in-law were in Mexico for something. I don't remember what they were there for, but for fun. And I was like, oh, can you get me, if you go to a bookstore, can you pick me up some Juan Jose Arreola books? And my sister did. She got me 3 books, all in Spanish. So I had to use my sister-in-law, who's a fluent Spanish speaker, to translate. And it was really funny, like, hearing her translate some of it and, like, her being like, what the hell? Because obviously now we know that he's sort of like there is some absurdism in his work. And so, like, while she was reading, she's like, I don't understand why this is like this. So it's a funny experience.
I love that,
What
Joey.
about you?
Yeah, and I love that because she's probably like, Joey, why do you read these really weird things? Can you just read like a normal story?
Yeah, she knows I'm weird.
She knows we have Guess what? That's what literary fiction is, right? It's a little bit out of the norm. If you want a straight up Dick and Jane story, we are not for you. And I think, Joey, when I'm thinking about what is on the roster for June, again, a lot of female energy. And I think that has been really interesting for me to think about. I really love the story by Ling Ma, Los Angeles. And I'm looking so forward to discussing it with you because there were so many pieces of that story that felt relevant to my own lived experience. And that was really something that I could latch onto. So I think that's going to be a great discussion for us.
That's funny because that's when I read that story, I was like, oh, I bet Jennifer would really like to discuss this one. So I was like, we should do this one. It feels like you would enjoy this one. And I swear to God, all of Ling Ma's stories from that collection, which is Bliss Montage, they're all fantastic. I would discuss any of those. They're all good. I bought her book Severance. I haven't read it yet, but those are her only 2 published works. I think she has maybe some other short stories that are floating around somewhere on magazine, but I'm excited to read that.
Yeah, Joey, I would be down for that. I loved it so much, and I was in my house after I read that story, and I was doing some menial task, and I was thinking about her Porsche 911 turning into a clown car and all the clowns that might be coming out from her past. And I just really, I think it's going to be a super fun conversation for us to have.
Yeah, I think Severance is about like a zombie apocalypse / like office corporate world. I don't know because I haven't read it yet and there's no synopsis on the back anyway, so I can't tell you.
So Joey, that's very funny that you should mention that because that leads right into the question that we usually end with is outside of the things that we have chosen to read for our podcast, what are some short stories or some collections or some novels that you're exploring outside what we discuss here?
I feel like I'm constantly just trying to find like the most obscure author that I can find, and then being like, no one's ever gonna hear of this person. Why am I doing this? So that's a constant. But the novels that I'm reading, I've been reading a lot slower lately. Stuff has been stressful in life. But I've been reading The Devils by Joe Abercrombie, who is a well-known fantasy author on BookTok, BookTube, BookSpheres, you know. I got the first Law trilogy, the first one back there. So if you know, you know. But anyway, this was his newer release, and it's not for me. I feel so bad because it should be for me. It's called The Devils. Okay, I love that already. And it has like a motley crew of characters. There's a werewolf, a vampire, magician, undead. Well, he's not undead. He's immortal, this one guy. There's an elf, and it's like a journey that they have to get from, they're going from one place and they're actually going to Troy in this story. And there's a lot of like really fun historical and mythological tie-ins that the author like completely takes and makes his own. And like these things don't exist, this is not the same. They don't exist at the same times in history or whatever. And I should love it. It's just not for me. I think the humor for me is a little too forced. It's like every line has to be a joke and none of it's funny. And then it's like very repetitive for me. It's like, okay, I get it. It's a battle scene, but like the stakes are not high enough right now.
And so
anyway.
So Joey, I love the way that you describe the book because I'm like, yeah, I want to read this book now until you get to the part where like, yeah, it just didn't work for me. I'm like, well,
a lot of people do love it. And I think what I've seen is, well, maybe not everyone who's already a Joe Abercrombie fan loves it, but I think that's the consensus is like, these are people who are already established fans, and so they sort of get his writing and his humor a little bit. But I've seen like the reviews are like, come on, it's a little much. So you never know. You could read it and you might love it.
So Joey, one of the things that has happened in our podcast time together, once upon a time, there was a person on this podcast who did not love Virginia Woolf. And through repeated exposure, you're like, I get it now. So maybe there's a little grain of hope for me that some of these more obscure or new to me authors that you were bringing in that, okay, maybe the first time didn't ring my bell. Maybe the second or third time, maybe it will resonate with me in a certain way. And I think one of the things I really appreciate about the way that you and I are able to make our way through these stories is that there's no guarantee that we're both going to like the story. There is no guarantee that we're going to be able to pull out useful things to share with each other. And so I'm always excited about sort of the spin of the dials, like the roulette wheel. Joey's going to throw something out and like, Never heard of it. I'm sure it'll be great. And so far, that has been true. But, the odds may not always be in our favor, right? At some point, we're going to get a dud and we're going to be like, not for me.
I feel like I know your reading taste well enough that, like, when I read a story, I read plenty of short stories where I'm like, we can't just, like, Jennifer doesn't want, this is not going to be a good story for Jennifer. Not that, like, you couldn't discuss it. I have no doubt that you could read any short story, even if you don't like it, and be like, here's all the things about it. But, like, a pure enjoyment from that story, maybe not.
Yeah. Here are all the things that were in the story, and none of them I appreciated. I'm like, well, that's not the kind of feedback that we would like to be giving here on this podcast for sure. And so, Joey, let me just tell you what I have been up to. So, I'm currently reading a short story collection, which I hope to integrate into our roster coming up. So that remains to be seen. But I am reading a short story collection from Lori Moore, which is called Bark. And I have really enjoyed the stories that I've read so far. So stay tuned for an update of when we will be discussing one of those stories from her collection. And she's a writer who's new to me. When I looked up her background, she shouldn't be new to me, but she is. And I also...
Yeah, I've never heard of her.
Yeah, and I was very excited. Somebody had gifted me that collection, and it had sat on my shelf for a very long time, and I picked it up, and I was like, yeah, today's the day. I was like, what was I waiting for? I can't believe I just have been missing out for the last 2 years with this just lurking in the background. And I have a novel that I'm actually going to be investigating, which came to me sort of by accident. And it is called The Lost Memoirs of Jane Austen by Sairee James. And it is a fictional work, totally fictionalized.
Say, damn, what is that? I need that now.
Totally fictionalized.
Damn.
That it was in this story that she's created using her vivid, amazing imagination. And I'm saying her, but I don't know. The author, James, has created the story, I have not read it yet, that Austen's memoirs were discovered and she has a secret love affair. And you kind of get like the backstory for all of the stories that she has graced us with, right? She has a huge fan base, that Jane Austen. She's really still drawing them in, even though she's been gone for, 100 years or more.
200. Yeah, she was in...
Yeah, and so I'm really excited. And one of the reviews that I read said that the author's style also has some echoes of Jane Austen in it. So I think it's just going to be like a really fun read. I hope that person delivers. If you're saying you're Jane Austen-esque, that's a very specific flavor of writing. But I would be interested in reading that. I love Jane Austen. I've read all of her novels. I mean, she only has 6. Unfortunately, I wish she died when she was young. She was only 42 or something. So she could have kept going. But we have what we have. I just saw a video on TikTok that I don't know who this person was, but she was being interviewed. She said that Sense and Sensibility is overhyped. I was like, fuck you, lady. That's my favorite one. Sense and Sensibility is not hyped enough. People love Pride and Prejudice, love all of them. Okay, or Emma. I feel like Pride and Prejudice is usually number 1 for people, and then like Emma is maybe 1 or 2, and then Sense and Sensibility is like somewhere there. But that's not hyped enough, in my opinion. So that lady's wrong. And Joey, I love that you are so passionate about this topic, right? It's like we welcome all opinions, but some opinions are more welcome than others, like the right opinions. And so I am throwing down the gauntlet, Joey. I am going to read this novel and then propose that if it lives up to the accolades that it has been given, we will definitely discuss it on here. Listeners, if you never hear about it here again, dun, dun, dun. You can draw your own conclusions on that. So Joey, I am so excited about what we're reading this month. And yeah, I guess I'll see you soon.